I am Hans and this is my channel, and today we are going to be installing a heater, and it's basically going to run off of the battery. You can hear it running right now because I've already installed it. It was really kind of a big chore, so I don't want you to go into this thinking, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, because it really wasn't. You got to drill holes in your van, you got to drill a hole for the vent. I destroyed one of my cordless drills doing it. Anyways, you can hear it going. It's actually getting really warm in here, and it's about 34 degrees outside right now. Let's go! Let me show you what we did. Sorry about the mess, but I wanted to, before I put all this together, I wanted to show you guys this thing. So this is like a little turbine jet thing that burns fuel, and I just kind of strapped this tank to here for now. I'm going to move it eventually, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys. So this is the fuel tank. It's running on diesel, and it's burning the diesel in here. It's got a little controller, this thing right here, which is kind of hard to see. You're able to go into this and make your adjustments on your temperature. This thing's really cold still, but it kind of gives you the idea of what's going on with your battery and how many volts you've got and all that fun stuff. I'm going to run this off of my solar system, so we are going to go ahead and hook up the solar panels and everything. This will run off of that. But it's really cool. It's blowing some super warm air out of that vent. So you can see we just kind of set it up so there's an intake here. The outtake goes here. I drilled a hole in this. There's two holes on the bottom here where this thing kind of sits down in. I have got this diesel heater jet thing, and I went ahead and I drilled some holes in the floor that match these holes. This was really the only thing that it came with that had the whole pattern on it, but it was enough for me to kind of check everything and get everything lined up. So these holes are all going to fit in that plate, so I was able to use this to make some holes that go underneath my floor. And the interesting thing is, this is the beam that runs through here, so there's not a lot of places you can actually put this thing and make it fit. So I was able to drill those holes, and this is my first test fit. Let's see if this thing will go in. Oh, there it goes. It's gonna go. Now the hard part is going to be getting this vent to come out here, because it's so close to this. I'm really going to have to try to line this up. And the nice thing is it comes with some of this kind of stuff. So you've got a little vent, so I can put that vent right there and put a little piece of this hose to connect. So you can see how this works. This end would go like this. So basically that hose would go in between here, which will only need like maybe an inch of it or 2 inches to get it extended in there. And you have an intake and an exhaust. And we need to put a little muffler and exhaust system on here. This was their little solution for that. You have this little muffler and this little pipe here. This clamps onto that hose and makes a little exhaust system. It comes with all kinds of little fittings and brackets and fuel filters and all kinds of stuff that we will use as we go forward, but really getting those holes in here was really the tricky part. I was able to reroute this wire because it used to come right through here. I just put it up and around there, and it's going to clear this, so when I bolt this down, it's not going to pinch any wires. This was an old wire from an amp that was sitting in here before, but it's not really hooked up to anything, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. But we want to have this thing sitting nice and flush with this rubber grommet on here, and then we're going to bolt this down and we're going to hook up the exhaust, and then we have, let's see, yeah, it was way easier the second time. They have this, they give you some long wires. This won't plug right into this obviously, but we'll be able to plug this controller in, and we'll be able to supply power to this through this. It'll just basically be pushing air through here to run the fan, and then the combustion part is going to be diesel. I'm going to get underneath here and I'm going to bolt this thing down. Just so you can see my janky setup here. This thing is the tank. You can see this maybe a little bit better. So we've got our intake right here, and that's the fan. You can hear the fan. It actually is pretty quiet overall. It's not super noisy. And then you've got your outtake to this vent right here, and this vent turns and swivels so you can kind of direct the air where you want. But it's really hot. It's really cranking out some good heat. It's warm in the van, and it is not warm out here. So let me show you the underside. So I'll show you what we got going under here. Is we have, this is the fuel pump. You can hear it clicking. And then you have your exhaust pipe right here, and it's blowing out some hot air here too. It's actually hot, so be careful. And you can see up there, you've got your intake right here. That line runs up, and you can see where all that stuff is hooked up. You got your fuel line running down to the fuel pump and the exhaust. There's lots of like brackets and fittings that you have to actually set up underneath there. The instruction book that I got, it looked like it was going to be really good, but it doesn't give you even any diagrams of like which is the intake and which is the exhaust on this thing. So just so you guys know, the exhaust is the one that sits by itself, and the one where the fuel line is right next to it. Let me see if I have that plate. So this is a good example of what we have. So this is the intake, and this is the exhaust. So intake here, exhaust here. This little thing is the indicator that's going to tell you which one. There's a little fuel line that comes out. The fuel line is on the opposite side of the exhaust hole. So you want to make sure that that fuel line is away from there, because that thing is hot, man. It's blowing out some really hot air, but it's cranking right now too. It's really pumping out a lot of air. Makes sense. It is common sense. So I think most of you guys would probably figure that out anyways. But it was a pretty easy install overall. It just took a lot of time kind of figuring out where I was gonna get things fastened, and you didn't want to have things just dangling around in there, so you wanted to get them kind of locked in. All the fuel lines and hoses. I kind of screwed up my fuel tank because I put this here thinking it didn't have to be a gravity fed thing. I didn't know it had to be on the bottom. So I had this whole tank flipped over the other way. And this was on top, and I had just run the hose down into the fuel thinking the fuel pump would be able to pump it out. No, that's not how it works. You need to make sure that you have a gravity fed system, so that's going to be on the bottom of whatever. I don't think I'm going to continue using this tank. I'm going to find something else, or we're going to tap into the gas tank of the van. But I was too anxious to get this thing done so I could actually have some warmth in here while I'm working on getting the rest of this done. So floors and solar system and everything like that, I'm going to be inside doing wiring and things like that. Now I've got a heat source, and although it is temporary and it's a little bit janky looking, it works. And it's blowing super hot air, and we're going to be able to stay nice and warm. But once you get the system in, you can't have any air in your lines. You've got to prime it before you do anything. If you have this controller, the same one that I'm using here, the trick is take the gas line that's going into the bottom of this off of the bottom of that. If you have one of these controllers like mine, when you get this thing, you're going to press and hold these two buttons here, the OK button and the down button at the same time. You're going to see an H pop up here, and it's going to say off. You want to push the up arrow until it says on. You'll hear the fuel pump start clicking, and it'll tick, 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 and you can watch the fuel lines and then let it just drain into a cup or something like that until all the air is out of the lines. And then you can turn this off by pushing that down. And now you don't have any air in the lines, and you can plug that thing in. And then I just reset the whole thing. I unplugged it and then I plugged it back in. And right now I've got it going directly off of the battery, just to kind of, like I said, this is super temporary, but I just wanted to get some heat in here while we're working. I'm super impressed with how much heat that's pumping out, and it's blowing pretty hard. I think you can control all that with this, and I kind of set it out here in front of here to see if it would like warm this piece up and then maybe shut this down, or if the thermostat on it would, I don't know. So there's a bunch of different modes and things that you can do to set that thing up. I might get into that more, but it's pretty much, you'll figure it out. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you're talented enough to get one of these things installed that far, or someplace in your van or your RV, you're not gonna have any problem figuring out the electronics on that thing. I just wanted to show you this. It's a quick and dirty video, I know, but we just wanted to kind of get this thing in place. We're gonna leave the seats out till I get my swivels in. They should be coming in. You know, it's a 2006, so over the years people have done lots of different things. It was a cargo van at one point. Some guy had put this massive stereo system in. It used to have an inverter over there, so we're gonna clean up all those wires, and then we're gonna get all of this stuff cleaned up, and then we're gonna start doing the garage and the bed and the solar and all that. I think I'm gonna get all the solar in. Again, I just wanted to get this so I had a warm place to work while I'm doing all this other stuff. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button if you want to see more content like this and watch the rest of this van build. And you'll see me in the next video.